कर दिया? So, once again, good morning everyone. I hope all of you are doing well. So today we are on the day 13th of the Unbreakable Challenge. As I always say, this is the third day of geography, and today we'll be discussing about the factors that contribute to the location of primary activities or even primary sectors, secondary sectors, and even tertiary sectors. Okay, so let me ask you a very simple question. Let's say you are going to build a factory. Okay, you can build throughout India. Let's say you are going to build a car factory. What are the various things that you will focus upon? What are the various areas that you will look into? You will look into the area where you will get cheap land. So land is there. You will focus on the areas where the labor is cheap, especially not in Kerala. You will look at the places where the raw material availability is there, maybe food products, maybe iron and steel, maybe water, everything, where easy regulations are there, where the ease of doing business is there, especially not in Kerala. And then you look into all these factors, right? So when you write these questions, when related to primary sector, tertiary, and even the secondary sectors, this is the way you should generate the points. So thinking in terms of land, raw materials, labor, ease of doing business, political conditions, social conditions, economic conditions such as incentives offered by different state government, raw materials, availability. So write in these terms of view. Okay, so land, labor, capital, you must write in all these points. So coming on to today's questions, firstly I'll have to basically go through three topics. You have the primary, secondary, and the tertiary sector. So I have taken mostly questions from the secondary as well as the primary sector here. Tertiary sector, you can only see one question related to the tourism sector here. So let's dive deeply into the first question. Now the first one. Now the first question. Okay. Despite India being one of the countries of the Gondwana land, its mining industry contributes much less to the gross domestic product in percentage. So what does the question basically ask you? The question basically says that despite being in a resource-rich country, or despite being in Gondwana land, such as we have the Chota Nagpur Plateau and all, the Indian manufacturing or the Indian mining sector contributes much less to the GDP. So what do you write in the introduction? In the introduction, you can write that India lies in the Gondwana land. Also, you must bring a fact saying that India's mining sector contributes very less to the GDP when compared to other countries. Let's see. So what do you introduce? In the introduction, you can write, you must mention first India comes under the Gondwana land. You must mention that India comes under the Gondwana land. After that, you must mention how much is India's GDP percentage in mining sector. What is our GDP percentage in case of mining sector? Always also compare it with other countries in the Gondwana land. You don't just compare with USA or something, but try to compare the GDP percentage of mining of those countries which were situated in the Gondwana itself. So this is where you can introduce your question. Now, what are the body parts here? It's very easy to identify the body parts for all these questions. So here, despite being one of the countries of the Gondwana land, its mining industry contributes much less to the gross domestic product. So what will be the first body part here? The first body part, you have to mention what are the reasons for the poor GDP contribution by mining sector. I guess only 2% or something. 2% is the contribution by mining sector in India. So what are the reasons for the 2%? And mention all these different factors. Okay, you can mention the social factors such as different tribal groups are there. In almost India have almost 8.6% of tribal population. So we can't just directly go and mine all these areas. You can mention about the environmental factors such as we are more environment focused countries. You can mention about the Chipko movement. You can mention about the environmental degradation something. So social point we have written. You can mention political points such as corruption. You can mention about the coal scam or even the Bellary coal scam. You can mention about economic points such as different points you can, regulatory issues, institutional measures, technological measures, such as even though we have the thorium, we are not able to extract it because of technological issues. We can mention legal issues such as different legal regulatory requirements required. You can mention about the institutional issues such as corruption, all these different laws, Environmental Regulation Act, eco-sensitive zones. So try to mention all these factors. Go for the pestle approach here, or even the PICE approach, political, institutional, economic and social approach. Then what do you need to mention? We have mentioned about the challenge here, right? We have already mentioned about the reasons, or we have mentioned about the challenge here. Now what do you need to provide? In case when you provide the reasons or challenge, you have to mention way forward. And what do you mention in the way forward? You have to mention how to improve the GDP of mining sector, or how to improve the mining sector in India. Now here you can mention all these points, all the government initiatives taken by the government, all the different government initiatives, all the institutional measures which is required, such as easing regulatory policies, easing environment policies, easing of bureaucratic hurdles, providing incentives to the private sector, opening up different sectors for the private sector. So try to mention all these institutional and easing of environment challenges out there. Also try to mention some of the recent initiatives taken by government, such as opening up of coal sector, the National Mineral Policy of 2017. Like, you have to provide all these factors. And in case of the conclusion, don't just provide a very general conclusion. Rather, even though mining sector is important, you must say, you can bring a lot of different concepts here, okay? Even though this is a GS1 paper, you can bring up the question of $5 trillion economy here. The mining sector need to be opened in order to achieve the dream of a $5 trillion economy. You can mention that. You can mention the mining sector should be opened in order to achieve the dream of 25% manufacturing sector GDP by 2025. You can mention developed country by 2070. You can mention the mining to GDP percentage of 10% by 2050. You can mention all these factors, okay? So try to introduce a fact or a conservation element here. Even though mining is important, it must be done in the view of environment conservation. So try to go for conservation, or for the developed country theme, or for a government goal or a target theme. Now for the second question, account for the present location of iron and steel industries away from source of raw materials by giving different examples. So what do you do here? Firstly, what can you do in the introduction? Account for the present location of iron and steel industries away from the source of raw materials. So in the introduction, you can mention that previously, when you look at the previous ages, such as the 1990s or even the 1950s or even the early 2000s, you can see that all these iron and steel industries were located where the source of iron or even the steel was there, or even especially the iron was there, right? Maybe in Bihar, Jharkhand and all these areas. Now it's started shifting to Gujarat, Maharashtra and all these areas because of various reasons, right? So introduction, what do you provide? You can provide that previously all these iron industries were located on the source of raw materials, where the raw materials were available. Now it's closely shifting to those areas due to several other factors. So that's how you can provide the introduction here. Now what can you provide? You can provide a map here. Now what do you provide in the map? You can draw an Indian map. So in the Indian map, you don't provide already existing iron and steel industries in the Chota Nagpur region. Because what does the question tell you? You have to mention those iron and steel industries which are not located on the source of raw materials. So here you can mention Western Gujarat, you can mention Maharashtra, you can mention Karnataka, you can mention Andhra Pradesh, you can mention. So try to mention all these areas wherein the lack of raw material exists. Do not mention the iron and steel industries close to West Bengal, Odisha or even the Chota Nagpur plateau. So draw a map regarding the same. After that, you mention the reasons. You mention the reasons why there is a shift. You mention the reason why there is a shift, or in why industries need not be close to the raw materials. You can mention transportation facilities. You can mention ease of regulations. You can mention easy availability of labor. You can mention the government policies of Gujarat or Maharashtra or any other state. You can mention the ease of doing business. You can mention the easy availability of land, capital, labor, and all these factors. So try to mention all these factors on the reason why the iron and steel industry can be located to those areas wherein raw materials does not exist. Okay, here we do not need to provide a second body part. Okay, we don't need to provide how to further increase the shift of financial industries from the areas where there are no raw materials. We don't need to provide that. Here there is only a single body part. But then try to draw a map regarding India and jot all the points wherein the iron and steel industries are not located on close to close to the raw materials. Now, third one, discuss the factors for localization of agro-based food processing industries of northwestern India. Now, what is the question basically asking? Why is there a localization of industries, or why are some of the agro-based industries located in the northwestern India? Okay, so discuss the factors for the localization of agro-based processing industries in northwestern India. So you have to mention, what do you have to mention? You have to mention the reasons why there is a localization, or why industries are located, on why food processing industries or agro-based industries are located in northwestern India. So firstly, what can you do in the introduction? Here, you can provide a contemporary example, okay, such as recently Prime Minister Modi has inaugurated a mega food park in Punjab, in Haryana, or even different place. Usually Prime Minister does not that. You can mention the name of the food and processing minister. You can mention the name of any different ministers. So try to go for a contemporary example. You can quote any mega food park which was recently established, or you can provide a very general introduction regarding all these areas, all this northwestern area. So northwestern area has seen the green revolution and different factors which has focused on, or which has improved the scope of agriculture based industries, and that's why there is an increase in agro based industries in this region. Now, for the basis of body part, what is the first body part? You have to mention the factors for the localization of agro based industries, and also in this question as well, you can provide a map. Okay, so what can you provide? You can draw an Indian map, and in the Indian map, you can mention some of the famous industries, such as Gujarat. You can mention the Amul in Anand. You can mention maybe Punjab, any other different industries, maybe rice-based some industries. You can mention Rajasthan, maybe some pulses or some other industries. So try to draw a map of northwestern India and jot out some of the famous agro-based industries which are situated there. Mostly in case of milk, pulses, soybean, or any other industries. Now, after that, you have to provide the factors for the localization, all the reasons why we have a lot of food processing industries in the northwestern India. You can mention all these points. Okay, skilled labor, education is very good, land is there, capital is there, Punjabis, Gujaratis are very rich. You can mention about the availability of raw materials. You can mention about the availability of water through the Indira Gandhi Canal. So try to mention all these different factors: land, labor, capital, raw material, ease of doing business, government policies, government promotion policies. Mention all these factors, okay? Institutional, political, economical, social, all these factors, labor, availability, everything you mention. So go for the pestle approach here. You can mention political factors, such as ease of doing business by the Gujarat government. You can mention of the economic policies, such as mostly you have per capita income is very high in Punjab areas, Punjab and Haryana. You can mention about social factors such as educated labor is there, educated and cheap and skilled labor availability. You can mention about administrative or institutional measures such as ease of doing business by Gujarat government or even any other government. You can mention about the latest inclusion of technology. You can mention about the availability of land. So try to mention all these factors. And in case of conclusion as well, now even though the question basically deals with discuss the factors for the localization, maybe you can provide 1 to 2 challenges regarding the agro-based industries in India or in the northwestern India, because the key term is discussed here. You can mention at least 2 to 3 challenges. You can mention, since the keyword is discussed, you can mention some of the challenges faced by these industries as well. And also, when you conclude, try to mention any particular thing, okay? Here, basically, we are talking about food processing sector. So therefore, you can go for reducing the wastage from 15% to 10%, doubling farmers' income by 2022, which has been extended to 2025. You can mention about export of agriculture exports to $400 billion. You can mention about, so try to bring in some keywords, developed country by 2022, something related to farmers. We can provide farmers are the strength of the nation. India live in its villages. So try to mention some of the goals, some of the government targets. I'll definitely explain. I'll show you all these keywords which you can include. Okay. Now, fourth one, how can the mountain ecosystem be restored from the negative impact development initiatives and tourism? So it's a very general question. Here also, either you can mention a very general introduction, okay, such as the mountain ecosystem and the tourism have led to degradation of several mountains. Maybe you can name some of them, or you can go for any of the recent example. Okay, recently there was this Joshimath landslide, right? Or there was an issue, there was a landslide in Chardam in Uttarakhand, because a Chardam highway connectivity project is going on in Uttarakhand to connect all the Chota Chardams in Uttarakhand. So because of that, a lot of mountains have been leveled, and it has led to a lot of landslides in these roads as well. So you can mention any of the recent examples such as Joshimath or even the landslides in Uttarakhand. Okay, or you can even go for a very general introduction mentioning the harmful effects of development initiatives and tourism in the mountainous ecosystems. Now, first of all, you have to mention what is the question: how can the mountain ecosystem be restored from the negative impact of development initiatives? So what is the first body part? The first body part is not basically how to restore, but then how the development initiatives such as tourism causes ecological damage to the mountains. So you have to mention basically how developmental initiatives and tourism leads to degradation of mountain ecosystem. So here is a very general point. You can mention all these factors such as environment factors, environment pollution, landslides, endless examples of, okay, the melting of glaciers, urban jungles. If you have been to Darjeeling or even Ooty, Kodaikanal, you know what I'm saying, right? They are basically urban jungles. You don't have space to park your vehicles. You don't have space to go throughout the city. You have a tram train or a train in the road. So it's all a mess in Darjeeling and some of the different tourism sites in India. So you can mention the term urban jungles. You can mention all these different factors. Okay, it's a very simple question. And also, what about the second body part? Second body part is the main body part here, and you have to mention how they can be restored. So here, if you actually go for the weightage, okay, you can mention at least 4 points in the first body part, as in what are the reasons for the development initiatives and tourism causing damage to the mountainous ecosystems. But then for the second body part, which is what the question is asking, you need to point more points. Okay, you can provide at least 6 points regarding the second body part. So how can it be restored? You can mention social measures such as community participation, You can mention sustainable tourism such as responsible tourism project by Kerala government. You can mention that all these projects, all these development initiatives should be on the basis of ecological, should not be on ecological sensitive areas. You can also mention that the environment assessment, EIA, environment impact assessment, should be done for all these development initiatives and also all these tourism projects. You can mention about sewage treatment plants for reducing pollution. You can mention all these areas, okay? You can mention about the introduction of electric vehicles, such as in Uttarakhand, they have introduced a policy. In Sikkim, they have introduced a policy. Even the PM e-bus seva have been introduced in mountainous regions for the promotion of electric vehicles. So try to mention all these factors, okay? Go for social, environment, technological, and all these factors. Also try to provide examples regarding the recent government initiatives as well. Now for the last question, it's a very simple question as well. So what does the question ask? From being a food importer in the 1960s, India has emerged as the next exporter to the world. So here you have to basically mention the reasons on how India became a net importer in the 1960s to a next net exporter as we are right now. So here in the introduction, what do you mention? You can mention about how India, the situation of India in the 1960s, how there was a food scarcity and all these factors. And what do you provide in the food first body part? You can mention the reasons from India becoming a net importer to a net food exporter. Okay, so there are no separate body parts for this. You can complete your answer in a single body part. Now you can pause the video and you can start writing. Meanwhile, I'll explain the answer key of the same. Okay, you can complete all these answers. It's a very simple 5 questions, but then let me tell you, in case of these questions, you should have a template, as I said before: land, labor, capital, all these factors. This is the points which we provide for even all the questions related to the factors responsible for the primary, secondary, and tertiary activities. Almost all the points are same for all the questions as well. Now, what do you add in the first question, or what should you provide in the first question? So here, sorry. So here, first question. Despite being one of the countries of the Gondwana land, India's mining industry contributes much less to the gross domestic product in percentage. Discuss. So what do you need to provide? You first need to mention that India was part of the Gondwana supercontinent. So here the topper has mentioned the same. The Gondwana land was an ancient supercontinent that was in part of, that is present day South America, Africa, India, Australia, and Antarctica. And now you need to mention the India's percentage of GDP, right? So India's mining industry contributes to 2.5 to India's GDP, including quarrying. This is very low when compared to Australia, 7%, South Africa also 7.5%. So you need to provide a comparison regarding India's GDP to some of the other countries as well. Now, you need to mention the reasons now. What are the reasons? You can mention about the social issues, such as the mining areas are those areas wherein the tribals inhabitate. So you can mention about the Niyamgiri issue in Odisha, Niyamgiri Hills in Odisha, or you can mention several environmental issues, okay, also, okay, because there have been certain environmental clearance given to one of the national parks, the Singbum National Park in, I guess, Assam or even Arunachal Pradesh. So you can mention all these factors. India is a very environment sensitive country. So forest rights you can mention. You can mention about the technical issues such as the shale gas, uranium, thorium. You can mention about the administrative issues such as power of authorities of the state government or even the different corruptions such as the coal scam. Legal hurdles, you can mention Supreme Court judgment regarding the coal block allocation, environmental clearances such as to environmental impact assessment, monopolization of PSU, especially in coal sector. So provide all these points, and also since it's a 10-marker question, you also need to provide the reasons on, you can also provide the reasons on how we can achieve this dream, right? We have to achieve it. So provide a way forward and try to mention all the recent government initiatives regarding the same. You can mention about uniform, you can mention about the uniform leasing policy. You can mention about the Mines and Minerals Amendment Act of 2017. You can mention about the different technological upgradations. You can mention about National Mineral Policy. National Mineral Policy. You can mention about recently we have opened up the coal, and we have opened up basically all the some of the other important minerals which are only restricted to government to private sector. So you can mention all these factors. And for the conclusion, try to provide a government goal regarding the same. So what can you improve? You can mention about the National Mineral Policy in the conclusion. You can mention about the recent Mineral Law Amendment Act of 2020. You can also mention the National Mineral Exploration Policy of 2016. Also, in case of conclusion, try to mention some of the targets here. You can mention about the manufacturing target of 25% to GDP. You can mention about to achieve a $5 trillion economy. Or you can mention the Ministry of Mines and also Niti Aayog must work towards easing regulatory bottlenecks and incentivizing private participation. Also, you can also go for the environmental approach. Okay, even though we need to improve our manufacturing sector, it needs to be done in accordance to the environment regulations, or in providing protection to the tribal communities as such. So you can also go for the environment as well as you can go for the economic conclusions as well. Both of them is good. Okay, don't just think that this is an environment question, therefore I can only provide, this is a geographical question, so I should not provide GS3 wala conclusions. No, in case of these questions you can provide all these $5 trillion and different government targets. Now second question, account for the present location of iron and steel industries away from the source of raw materials. So here what do you need to mention? You can draw such a map. Okay, draw an Indian map and mention some of the industries here. You can mention Gujarat iron and steel industries, Karnataka iron and steel industries. You can mention iron and steel industries in Andhra Pradesh. So mention all these areas wherein we don't have much raw materials, but then there are iron and steel industries there. So in the introduction, you need to mention a comparison between the previous iron and steel industries and today's iron and steel industries. So provide, traditionally the iron and steel industries developed near the raw material sources, especially iron and ore, but due to the bulky and weight lossing nature, but then in the recent decades, the location of many steel plants have been shifted away from the raw materials towards market, port, labor and infrastructure hubs. You can maybe mention that. If you do not mention, also it's fine. Now provide the source of mention about the iron and steel industries in India on areas which there are no raw materials. Then after that, the reasons. You can mention to the shift to market oriented locations, because in Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Odisha, we don't have any industries, right? We don't have much industries. Now it has been shifted to Gujarat, Maharashtra because of the availability of so many different industries, steel plants. Port-based locations for import and export, you can mention about the Marmango port, JNPT port, Mangalore port, all these ports. You can mention about the improved transportation infrastructure in India. You can mention about the availability of skilled labor and urban facilities. And always when you write these points, try to substantiate them, okay? Bhushan Steel Plant, Tata Steel Plant in Kalimnagar. Government policy, you can mention Mumbai-Delhi industrial corridors, Delhi-Mumbai express highways, Dholavira industrial parks, Mundra ports. Try to mention all these. Environmental land acquisitions, allied industries should be there. integrated supply chains. So try to mention all these factors because this is the reason why iron and steel industries are shifting away from those BIMARU states. So in case of this question as well, go for different goals. Don't go for a very general conclusion. You can mention make in India. You can mention about ease of doing business. You can mention about the relocation of steel plants towards ports and market is a strategic step aligned with National Steel Policy of 2017, which targets 300 million tons of steel by 2030. All this you can provide. As India aspires to become a $5 trillion economy, or you can mention decoupling of steel industry towards one location builds India support to reducing logistic costs to 8%. Now it's around 14 to 15%. So to reduce it to 8%. Manufacturing share of 25% of GDP. So try to mention all these points. $5 trillion economy, national steel policy, 300 million tons of steel production by 2030, national logistics policy. You can mention all these factors in the conclusion. Okay. Now, third question, discuss the factors for the localization of agro-based food processing industries of northwestern India. Here, the topper have written, the northwestern India is a region which witnessed the Green Revolution in 1916 onwards. This multifold increase in the crop yield, especially rice and wheat, increased in northwestern India. It's a very poor introduction. Now, he or she have written the factors and also try to draw a map. Now, what do you include in the map? You mention the northeastern region and you mention all these areas, Gujarat, Amol, Sanat, here, production of pulses, millets, all these areas. Haryana and Punjab, you can mention about the production of rice and wheat. So draw a map and mention all the raw materials available there or even some of the famous industries available there. Also, go for a level 2 model of introduction. As I said, you can mention about any inauguration of the recent food park or something. So as I have mentioned recently, these are all made up examples. Okay, there are no, maybe some of the food parks have been inaugurated in these series, but then I always tend to make up examples because the evaluator doesn't care. The evaluator won't Google what he have written. The evaluator won't know basically, even if a small mega food park have been inaugurated even in 2030 or anyway. Recently doesn't refer to 2024 only. Recently refers to 2022, 2023. So the evaluator won't take that extra effort to Google it. Okay. So I always, in my last 4 mains also, I tend to make a lot of examples regarding it. So recently a mega food park under the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sampadhan Yojana was inaugurated. You don't need to mention in India, in Haryana, mention any particular district by any minister. Okay. Here I have mentioned Union Education Minister, but then this is a true thing, okay, but then you can provide by the Union Minister of Food Processing Industries or someone and name his name, give his name, or provide a very general introduction such as the Northwest India comprising states has emerged as a key hub for agro-based food processing industries or something like that. Now, what are the reasons? You can mention about the rich agriculture base, raw material availability, the granary of India. You can mention about the well-developed and irrigation. You can mention about the different dams which is there, or you can mention about the Indira Gandhi Canal. You can mention about the infrastructure and connectivity such as, now we have all these dedicated freight corridors, right? Dedicated freight corridors. Or you can mention about the Delhi-Mumbai Expressway. Or you can mention about the gas pipeline. The gas pipeline from Hazira to, you can mention about the gas pipeline. You can mention about the government policies such as Operation Greens, Pradhan Mantri Kishan Sampada Yojana, mega food parks, all these things. You can mention about the skill and entrepreneurial base such as Jat Sikh farmers, which are mostly into agriculture. Presence of cooperative societies. You have different cooperative societies. You have different mandis. You can mention Amol. You can mention all these different cooperative societies out there. You can mention about the export orientation, global connectivity. mention all these ports, Mundra port, GNPT port. You can mention also about the urbanization and also the market. The market availability should obviously be there, right? When you produce a commodity, there should be someone to consume it. Now there are different cities close by. You can mention Jaipur, you can mention Amritsar, you can mention Punjab. These are all the different markets for all these produced goods. Chandigarh, Jaipur. So conclusion, try to provide a level 2, as I always say. You can mention about the mega food park scheme. You can mention about the Operation Greens, or you can mention doubling the level of food processing from now it's around 8% or something to 20%. You can mention about the reducing post-harvest losses from the 15 to 18 to 10%. You can mention about the employment generation, or you can mention about the doubling farmers' income by 2022. Okay, so as I always say, for this factors and location, primary, secondary and tertiary based questions, try to go for land, labor, capital, raw material, industries, education, skill, government policies, administrative institution measures. It's very easy to generate the points for all these questions, and try to include the recent government initiatives when you write these points. In case of introduction, you can mention a very general kind of introduction, or else go for any recent incident, such as any plant inaugurated, such as any recent incident in the Himalayas, or any, try to go for a contemporary evolution. And also when you go for the conclusion, even though it is GS1, it's okay to provide, since it's based, question is based on the industries or more on the economic terms, you can go for the different government goals. Manufacturing sector by 25% manufacturing by 2025, developed country by 2040, doubling farmers' income. You can mention all these factors, okay, Amarkal, anything you can provide. So, does anyone have any doubts regarding this thing? It's morely a simple paper, I guess. So, anyone, any doubts? Does anyone have any doubts regarding this thing? Okay, we'll then wind up the session. Okay, so tomorrow we'll be tomorrow I guess we'll be dealing with water management policies. Okay, I'm not sure about tomorrow's topics. Okay, so anyways, I'll see you all tomorrow exactly at 11 a.m. and also try to make a one-pager note regarding the same, because the topics are very static, and also go for this type of conclusions and introductions which I have discussed now. Okay. So thank you everyone once again. Thank you for joining.